going, and if anybody joins later, then they can still catch up. So welcome to the second part of our Requirements Engineering Principles for Test Engineer workshop series. Today, we're going to cover the topic of techniques for requirements elicitation and user interface design basics. The key things and theory and practice for requirements elicitation. And why is it needed to understand for test engineers, either in a role when they're also working with requirements or in a collaboration together with a business analyst. Our agenda today in more detail, by the way, just to confirm, you can see my screen, right? Please write in the chat or just unmute yourself. Yep, thank you so much. All right, so our agenda today, okay, hey, Roman is also joining us. Today, we're going to have a similar structures as yesterday. For those who were present yesterday, we will have some short introduction. We will then dive in the first part of this workshop into the requirement sources and categorization of requirements according to the Kano model, which will help us with diving further into the techniques for eliciting of requirements. Then we'll have a short break for about 10 minutes, and then we'll review the technique for understanding our users better. It's user persona. And then we'll also look into the principles for user interface design. And at the end of the workshop, we'll also have an interesting practical part of a real life meeting, very similar to real life meeting. Of course, it will be a training one for eliciting the requirements. If you have any questions or comments, please write it in the chat, or you can also unmute yourself, because today we are a bit of a smaller, more cozy group, and hopefully we'll have more chance for everybody to speak today and to participate. The ground rules, I will remind them, is to stay on mute. So your microphone should be muted if you're not speaking, but if you want to say something, to comment, feel free to unmute yourself to ask your questions. And it's nice if you would be active. The learning is not only on the trainer, but also on the trainees. So depending on how you would participate in this workshop would depend the usefulness of it for you, and be on time, and you are. So thank you very much for doing that. As previous time, and I believe all of the participants were present last time. So yesterday in our workshop, we also have the parking lot for questions. If there are some interesting but not immediately related questions for this current discussion, and there's also a slot for references. So let me again add the link to Miro in the chat, so you can enter the Miro board, same as yesterday. Let me know if you have any difficulties with doing so. So you can, if you enter it, again, by unscrolling, you would see the entire structure of our trainings, and you should hover a bit down. So you will see the open section of the workshop yesterday. And for instance, Julia, you can hover or drag the Miro board a bit lower to see the section of today's session. All right. And so I was also referring to the references. So besides the 3 books I was sharing yesterday, there are a couple of other books and resources for the usability and user interface design. This is not a must-have, let's say, part of the requirements engineering, but it's a very nice addition that to have this knowledge and the basic understanding while successful analysis of requirements. And this knowledge is actually useful for any role, including test engineers, because by understanding usability principles, every team member can contribute into the product by providing some suggestions by asking the right questions about how our system works, etc. So you can find here, this is a very nice resource, Nielsen Norman Group, and there is a couple of just links to the conventions, icons, and prototype, one of the prototyping tools. With that said, let me go to the next part. So I see that Dennis and Julia were able to enter the Miro board. Roman, are you also able to enter the Miro board? Will it be possible? You can unmute yourself or write it in the chat, because next one is an interactive part where I would ask you to move some stars on the Miro board. Roman, if you have a chance to write in the chat, please do. Otherwise, you can also use the chat if you don't have ability to enter Miro. Let me know, okay? So for Dennis and Julia, since I see you are on the Miro board, you can see the next section that's called emotions or frame. In Miro, it is frame. So there is a emotion, mood, face chart. It's just a starting exercise to understand where we are this evening. You can pick any stars of any color and just grab one and hover them onto the emotion that you are feeling, that you are in right now. So for instance, you are happy or bored, or you are excited. So you can use the 2 stars of the same color and just put them on a board.
I need one more tired after working day.
One more star? Well, you can take
not one more star, one more emotion, like tired
one more
after working day.
Ah, yeah, you're right. There's no tired. Unhappy is not necessarily tired. Yeah, tired would be, we could add one. There should be emojis here. Let's see. This one. Yeah. Let's add one. So by the way, you can see, yeah, Miro, we can do that as well. Okay. Oops. All right. So I see Dennis is surprised and Julia is happy and tired at the same time. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, but that's good. Good to hear you have the happy and surprised emotions. It's very nice, and I hope we can make it. That means the learning process would be coming to a nice condition. So it's good to hear you're happy. I think I'm excited to continue with this workshop today. All right. And I see one other participant from yesterday's session on this board because it's the same one. All right, let us continue with some theory block that I will share right now. We will start with defining the requirement sources, and we'll talk about the Kano model. So I will just ask a question. Can you tell me, where do you think we can receive the requirements from? You can unmute yourself and just reply.
Product manager.
Product manager. Yeah. Yeah, so it's some stakeholder, right?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay. Yes. Anything
Do some
else?
research.
From research of what exactly?
For example, if we have some, I don't know, health application, we can make some research of it, like about other health applications and etc. how they are working and
Like user survey.
User survey, or for instance, competitors analysis. Yeah, so we have some other applications, right? That's what you meant, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay, indeed. So some industry standards, so users, stakeholders, like product manager, business stakeholders, etc. Yes, very, very, very nice. Let's see. It could be also some documents, some maybe regulations that exist. Like yesterday, we've seen some standards like EU regulations for data privacy that would be a source of requirements for us. So things that constrain our solution. And some specifics about stakeholders. So stakeholders in requirement as a part of requirement source would be one of the major ones, because as Dennis mentioned, product owner usually in Scrum would be the owner of the product backlog, right? With all of the ideas for the future functionalities we want to add into the system. While we are eliciting the requirements, so when we are gathering the information for new functionality, for new tools, new things we want to add, it's important, of course, to consider all the relevant stakeholders. What do I mean by that? As not to miss any important person or organization, maybe that that can bring another perspective or some extra details that may be crucial in the process of requirements engineering further on. So it's very important during when we're preparing for elicitation of requirements to make sure we have all of the relevant stakeholders that we want to involve in this process, that from whom we want to gather these inputs. And if we don't consider, we don't involve somebody, what it can lead to? What do you think? What can be a consequence?
We can create something that no one wants to use.
Yeah, it's when we are neglecting or don't take into account the needs of our users, for example. It can be that we create something that nobody wants. It can be something that we cannot actually sell because of some constraints, right? If we don't comply to certain regulations, it will mean that we cannot provide it to anyone, or it can. Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to add, maybe we need to also take into account different quality and performance metrics, maybe of another similar products that are out there in the market or out there in use.
Yes, it can be. So if we, for instance, don't take into account some quality requirements, it may be again something that nobody wants to use. It may be have the functionalities people want, but they don't work as well as in other software. So that's why people would not choose our product. Yeah, that's correct. Thank you for the comment. And what can we do in order to make sure we're not missing anyone and we have the understanding of stakeholders in our project. There is a technique that a person who works with requirements that need to gather information from different stakeholders, especially in a project where there is a big group of them, and there is a lot of information hidden maybe sometimes about these stakeholders. It's a stakeholders list. It's an internal tool for the team to maintain, to have an understanding who are our stakeholders. So this is the formal part of this list with stakeholder name, contact information, the position, department, the physical location of a person, role for the project, responsibilities, authority level, and expertise. In this way, we structure information about our stakeholders and can convey and can understand whom it would be best to contact. This is also a great tool to for instance, a person who is new to the project and doesn't know yet everybody like good friends, right? Because if you have immediately a lot of different people, you might be a bit overwhelmed of all of the people you may need to contact, and it's not to clarify what is important, whom it's important to come to and to talk to. That's the goal of such a stakeholders list. And as you can see here, we have authority level, expertise to also indicate where does this person has the most of knowledge, or where this person can take a decision, make a decision. So that helps us to understand whom to involve in which requirements elicitation. There is also an informal part of this table. If there is a formal, there should be probably informal part. And that one is really like an insider's information, something that you've learned about this person during communication with him or her. So it's some assumptions, also more subjective information. So special needs, expectations of the project or product, perceived attitudes or risks of the person, influence. And here we have we had authority level, like formally, does this person can make a decision? For instance, product owner would be able to approve certain requirements, prioritize them, and define what goes in or not. And in this column, we would mean in the influence, formal and informal, we would state something like this person is for a long time in the company and quite knowledgeable, long timer. So everybody would listen to the opinion of this person, even though it's not some manager or lead that has this formal power. And recommendation regarding collaboration. So very practical things like it's better to reach out to this person in chat or immediately set up a meeting or a mail, etc. And some expectations about how fast the person responds, is it's a very busy person, and etc. So everything that can help us understand who is this person and maybe the motives of providing certain information. For instance, so if a person is more technical or has a specific interest in some certain direction of development of the product, we may understand that part of the feedback, part of the input that person gives to us is related to that goal of developing the product in such a way. So we can then filter out a little bit this input to understand where is the common part or the ground, the common ground. Have you encountered such a technique before, or you have one on your project?
I don't have it in our project.
Mm-hmm. Okay, do you think it would be useful if you need to communicate with a lot of stakeholders?
I think yes, because I have enterprise project and sometimes you don't know whom to ask.
Yeah. And in that sense, it can be useful. All right, thank you for the feedback. Let's move on. Let's now see about the topic of requirements categorization according to the Kano model. That will help us then further with elicitation techniques, as I mentioned before. So this is a schematic depiction of the Kano model categorization and principles. So we have a graph here where there's two axes. On one axis, we have satisfaction. On other axis, we have the functionality. And then in Kano model, there are three key categories for the features, for the functionality that we want to include in our product. It's features dissatisfiers, features satisfiers, and delighters. This is their names. We will see there are a few more, but they're less critical. These three categories are the ones that are mentioned the most. And so what are these categories of features? Features dissatisfiers is some really basic thing that our users just expect to be in the product. Some functionality that just should be there. For example, in the application for maps, it should be possible to create a route or to see the names of the geographical locations. That's a feature dissatisfier. If there will be no possibility to create a route, to guide a route in the map, or to measure a distance between two locations, that would be considered unacceptable, and a user can just refuse using the product. Or for instance, a phone that doesn't have a function to call, that would be a feature dissatisfier. Something very basic and very just needed. And if we ask user about features that they want, they would probably just even omit the dissatisfiers because it's something obvious for them. Why do even mention that a phone should have an option to call? And you can see on this graph that dissatisfiers will never, so this is a baseline level of satisfaction. So this is 0, where we have this line. And we see that how it gradually comes to the 0, but even if we do perfectly all of the basic functionality, the person would not be very satisfied because it's something very basic. But we also know that if there will be no such tools, the person would be absolutely upset. So it's a feature that we need to implement for a user to be just neutral. So he will not be happy, he will be just fine. Then there are feature satisfiers. These are the drivers of the product. These are the features that people request and they have in their conscious mind. So they would request, and also they are sometimes connected with increasing it qualitatively. What I mean, for example, if a phone has 64 gigabytes of memory, people would request 124. They would expect more and more and more. And they, as we can see here, there's a direct connection between the effort we put into the satisfiers and the satisfaction of the user. So the more, the better. The more pixels, the more resolution, the better speed, everything that makes a product a little bit better. And yeah, it's visible for the user. And these satisfiers is an important part of the scope. It's something we can brag about when we're releasing the product. And then there's this third category that's called delighters, or we can say also wow features. It's something that users don't expect and don't even realize could be done. It's like in their subconscious level, that unconscious that they didn't realize they needed that. Example of wow features could be, for example, in the maps, if you would create a route to some public place like a cafe, if it would take you the time longer than, so when you get there, it will probably already be closed. There will be a pop-up informing you about. And maybe now it's not of that wow feature, but it's just something more to satisfy, and that's another part. But yeah, when it was just added, it was really wow. I didn't know that that could be the case, that the software can do that. Or you can notice some nice functionalities that makes you really say, wow, that's nice, that's useful, that's interesting. Like for example, playing games in a mobile app for banking. That's a wow, I didn't know that could be that could be present. Of course, the lighters for somebody can be useful, for somebody can be, well, I'm not sure if I am a fan of it, but for part of the users, that would be interesting. Then the aspect that I just mentioned, the wow features gradually go to the satisfiers. So as I mentioned, this feature for informing you that you will get there and probably the location will be closed is something we are more or less expect right now. But when it just appeared, it was amazing. Or like, you know, these photos of the location you want to go to in the Google Maps. Right now, we more or less expect to see some photo of how the location I'm going to will look like. But previously, it was really a breakthrough. So delighters would gradually shift to satisfiers, and satisfiers also over time will go to dissatisfiers and will no longer be a wow factor for users. Like with the phone, having a camera that can take pictures and videos, it's something that we expect in a smartphone, I mean. And previously, that's when it just appeared, it was really an amazing functionality. And the thing that I didn't mention about delighters is that even if we put just a little bit effort into the feature delighter, we already cause certain amount of satisfaction. So we're already in positive numbers for the satisfaction of the user. As it's clear, maybe you have some questions about this part. If yes, let me know in the chat, or you can unmute yourself as well. All right, I will continue for now. There's also two different other categories of features that are more rare, and we normally should avoid doing those. One is indifferent, and in the graph it would just be on this baseline, and it means no matter how much effort we put into these features, users won't care. So it's basically money sinks. It's a waste of time and effort of the team because this is just unneeded functionality. And there's also another part of reverse features. So reverse features is those that users don't want. And in fact, if we add them, it will cause a dissatisfaction. So it's vice versa dependency in a satisfaction. One example of the feature reverse would be, if you remember in the Office package, there was this pin that was a helper that would pop up and suggest you some help, but it was not always useful and people didn't really enjoy that, so it was removed afterwards. So those are also features important to make sure they don't annoy your users unnecessarily, and when you didn't intend to annoy them, of course. And then the connection to the elicitation techniques. When we understand the groups of the features, like it is explained in a Kano model, dissatisfiers, satisfiers, and delighters, we can pick the technique that suits the best for this type of feature. What exactly specific we're talking about? It's the level of understanding, the consciousness level of these features. Like we said, these satisfiers would be not will be an non-conscious knowledge of the user, so they don't think about them. And so for eliciting of these type of requirements, we would use observation techniques when we observe someone working, and we can notice these things that user does and he or she requires them, but don't mention it because just they are obvious, they're needed. And document-centric techniques when we have certain documentation and we can just browse through it and find these details of the basic functionality that is just absolutely needed to be in the software. Satisfiers is something that our users know, so it's a conscious knowledge. And then the surveying techniques will help us finding these features just by asking our users, and we will see further which survey techniques there are. And the delighters, since they are not in the mind of our users, it's something that basically we provide them, and after receiving the feedback, realize that's something useful. So these tools we would be eliciting by using the creativity techniques to really brainstorm, to generate ideas, to create this new, fresh functionality. And then let's see a little bit further in the technique of how do we categorize the features. For instance, we have a number of features in our product backlog. And we want to understand which one would be, which technique to choose. So we want to understand which of the category this feature belongs to the most. So by categorizing it, we need to ask two questions. First, how do you feel if you have the feature? And a second, how do you feel if you did not have the feature? And to both of these questions, the user should answer one of these options. I like it, I expect it, I'm neutral, I can tolerate it, and I dislike it. And then after the answers are gathered, we create such a graph with these answers for both of the questions: feature absent, feature present. And then on the intersection, we have a definition what feature it is. It's a delighter in case we have an intersection with when feature is absent, either expected, don't care, or live with. So the person doesn't expect it to be in the product. And he likes it, definitely likes it when it is in. So the satisfier is when user definitely says he dislikes it when it is absent and likes it when it is present. And the dissatisfiers will be all below when dislikes when it's absent, and expect, doesn't care, or live with when it's present. So it's just something, yeah, it should be there, but no real excitement about it, no like it. Reverse would be right here when a person likes when it's absent or dislikes when it's present. And then there is in different features in the middle, as you can see, if it's don't care versus don't care, it's something not very, something we don't need to put our effort into because users won't use it. It will not bring us more users. And when there's intersections of conflicting things, like person likes when it's absent and likes when it's present, we need to dive a bit deeper or talk with the user to make sure user understood, or the person we interview understood the question, understood the feature and the technique in general. All right, let's practice this categorization together. You can go back to the Miro board, and I would open up our next exercise right here. So you can select, let's do it in 2 rounds. The first round, I would ask somebody to volunteer to answer these questions. And I would be moving the cards in our imaginary interview, in our table for the features. So we have the features of some banking application. We have plenty of them. So I would be asking as a reference the question to somebody of you, or yeah, let's pick somebody, Dennis or Yulia, who wants to be volunteer.
Yeah.
Dennis?
Yeah,
okay.
I could.
Okay, perfect. So I will be asking you the 2 questions and about specific features, and you can answer with one of these options. All right. Okay. So if you would have a feature to be able to open a new bank account, would you, if you have it, would you like it, expect it, neutral?
I would expect it.
You would expect it. Okay. And then if it would be absent?
I would, well, it all depends. If we're speaking about just a brand new bank account within my already existing account, if the idea is that I'm just wanting to add additional new bank account to my existing account. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm talking about. It's yes. like the new bank number or whatever. It's just, for example, I don't know, saving account or whatever account. Mm-hmm. I would rather, well, I would dislike that for sure. because it's quite natural to have some functionality that would allow you to actually open the new account, whatever it is, a saving account or a pension account, whatever.
Yep. Okay. So it was expected and dislike. It means it's a feature dissatisfier. Perfect. Then let's talk about transfer money from to account in a bank. Would you like if the feature was present?
It also seems to be the very basic feature for any bank application. So I would rather expect that. And if you will be dissatisfied and really would dislike the application if it's this feature would be absent.
Yep. Okay. Debit card.
It's like opening or what?
Debit card is the card that is just a basic one without the credit limits, but just a regular card.
But would you mean like that I will have some kind of
so in your bank account, there is a possibility to have a bank debit card. So just a very, again, basic thing.
Do you mean like I will be able to open the new debit card, or I would rather see some kind of a summary of my latest operations with my debit card?
Just be able to have it.
Okay, so I would expect that for sure.
Expect if it's to be present and dislike, or live with if it's absent.
I think it's rather dislike.
Okay. So dissatisfier. Credit card.
It's the same. It's also
over there. Okay. Possibility to block the card in case it is stolen.
In common situation, I would rather assume that this is expected functionality and will be I would be dissatisfied if that would be missing. So I will have to call the bank or head to the bank itself. So it's not super convenient. So it's on the same place. I think everything will be on the same place.
Let's see. There's some more recurring automated payments. Yeah.
Well, if we're speaking about my bank account application, then this feature has been there for, I don't know, 10 years at least. So I would probably expect this one, and also would be dissatisfied because I'm use that quite often for different bills that I pay. So I would rather say it will be dissatisfied if it will be missing.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and the thing that I maybe not explicitly mentioned yet is that these questions were asking to specific person. So it's okay, it's your personal, like it, dislike it. And then we can, when we are analyzing the features in general, we can gather replies from a number of users to see in general where it belongs more. Thank you. Close bank accounts.
I think I would like it, but I could live without this feature because it's not that one that you, at least it's not that functionality that I would use quite often or use it at all.
Okay, live with. And if you don't have it, then...
No. I mean, I would like it if it would be there, but if it won't be, if it would be absent, then I can live with this. If it will be there, then I will like it. If it will.
So like it, really like it. And you can live with. So for you, it will be a delighter.
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay. All right. Then mobile application for accounts and card management.
For me, it will be on the same place as the previous one.
Okay, so something, but so really live with if it's absent.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe I'm too conservative, but I don't use too much this banking, mobile banking applications. But anyway, as SMS from bank, I would balance. It would be nice, but I can live without it. I don't use it myself.
So would be nice if it's present, then it's
it's also it's the same place. I mean, yeah, here
or here.
Yeah, this place.
Okay.
Calls from the bank with
the credit offers.
No. I wouldn't like that one, but it would be rather neutral, and I would like if this functionality would be missed.
Yeah.
I mean, if it would be absent.
So this is a reverse feature, but we know that it is present for the needs of some business
for the marketing.
Yes, not really for the users, maybe. Well, partially, but mainly.
Mails from the bank. Yeah, I would be quite neutral if there would be some mails from the bank with different offers. But I also would be neutral if it would be absent, or rather closer to the next one for more satisfaction. Because I don't like different mails from the bank, because normally they want to sell something or just to offer some additional stuff for you, which you're normally not super interested in.
So rather an indifference. So you're not strictly against it. So
yeah, I mean, sometimes they do offer something interesting, but
all right, let's move on. Bank reward system.
We don't have it here, but I would like it. However, we do have something like you can gather, or you can have some coupons for different services. So yeah, I would like it, but if it would be absent, I would stay neutral.
So it still would be a delighter then.
Yeah.
Okay. Change PIN codes on the card in the ATM.
Yeah, that will be expected. So I would like it, and if it will be missing, then it's for sure a dislike.
So a satisfier. First satisfier. Perfect. Pay pass for the card. Being able to use that one. Pay wave.
So I would like it, and but I don't use it myself too much, so I will stay neutral if it will be absent.
All right. And a few more. Paying by the smartphone.
I would like it, And I don't use it myself, so I will stay neutral if it will be absent. However, I would live with that rather this thing, because normal modern bank applications do have this functionality. So I would rather live with that, because more and more people start to expect this functionality from those bank apps.
So you can live with that.
Yeah. It's a better place for that.
Okay. Good. Authentication in the app via Face ID.
That would be nice to have, but I will stay neutral if it will be missing.
Okay.
I don't think that I'll be using that one.
Okay. And
center. Yeah, that's kind of. It's maybe not the thing that you expect from the bank app exactly, but yeah, of course, I would kind of like it, and would live with it if it will be absent there, if some special support calling functionality will be missed from the app. Because still normally use kind of a phone number from external source. Anyway.
All right. In the app, let me add that one.
Yeah.
Because in general, it could be done maybe in a different place, or no? If it's
if you cannot call the support at all, then of course that would be rather dissatisfied, because sometimes you want to get somebody urgent on the phone and ask you a question and get the answer as fast as possible. So it's I'd rather be a dissatisfied, but if the functionality is missing from the app, then you can still live with it.
Yeah.
So statistics of your expenses, statistics. If it's the report that we're talking about, then I would expect that it's there. But if it's somewhat of a statistics which kind of divides
smart things like graphs of types of goods.
If it would be super smart, normally I just require the report. I don't require some statistics, so I would like it, but I will just stay neutral if it would be absent from the app. Okay.
Deposits, being able to open a deposit in a bank and to have one.
I'll stay neutral if there would be such an opportunity, and also I will still, exactly in the middle. So I don't really care if that feature would be there or it will be not there.
All right.
Like changing the credit limit or.
Credit limits, it's for example in the for the card, even a debit card, you have certain amount of
I would expect that, and surely I would be dissatisfied if that one would be missing. Okay, so this is fire. Credit card for your kids. I would say that it's not super necessary to have this option in your application, but still it's nice to have. And also if it won't be there, then that's okay. You can go with your kid to the bank and open the bank account there. It will be a nice adventure for the kid as well. So let's stay neutral from both sides. Transfer money from two accounts in the ATM. It's not what I do or ever did, to be honest, from the ATM. So same neutral. And transfer money from bank. Yeah, of course, that's expected, and would be dissatisfied if that one would be missed. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for the input. So then we've seen how the features then are distributed for the specific based on person per person. These categories may slightly differ, but in general we understand, we see which things are really necessary and the basic basis of our products,
things that we can achieve some higher satisfaction the more effort we put into them, and some delighters, some nice things that we can look into and add, maybe spend not that much of the effort on them, but it's also important to add them because they would also make a difference, make our product stand out from comparing to others. And it's really those features that create the buzz about the product. Oh, have you seen this feature or that feature? All right, and to just make this exercise clear, and maybe this technique, let's switch the roles. And you can, I invite you both to ask the questions, maybe one by one, and you can use any of the boards you see and just drag the cards to just feel the techniques yourself, because I was dragging the cards myself right here. You were able to grasp the idea. And now let's just for a couple of minutes to do this exercise in reverse order. So you can ask the questions, and by my replies, you can also ask clarifying questions if I don't state it very precisely, and drag the cards in one of these tables. You can pick one. All right, we can start whenever you're ready. Is the task we're going to do right now is clear?
We need to ask you, as I understand.
Yes, yes.
Okay, if we talk about bank application, is a feature of open a new bank account something you would like or expect, or something like this, if this feature is present?
Yeah, if it's present, I would probably expect it.
And if it's absent?
I would dislike it.
And like this.
Makes sense.
And what about feature transfer money from or to account in the bank? Would you like this feature if it's present?
Transfer from to account, yes, I would also expect it.
And how would you feel if it's absent?
I would dislike it.
Sorry, it's somehow hard for me because I'm using laptop
To
move everything.
The touchpad, you mean? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It
Okay.
can be cumbersome.
How would you feel if you have a debit card in your application?
A debit card, I would expect it, and I would not like if it's absent. So this, yeah. And the credit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
And what about credit card?
Credit card, I'm neutral if it's there, and I'm neutral if it's not there.
And about possibility to block the card in case it's lost or stolen?
I expect it, and I would dislike it if it's not there. Sure. Somebody to go with all of my money.
And recurring automatic payments, is it important for you?
I'm neutral if it's there, and I would probably like it when it's. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm neutral if it's not there, and I would like it probably if it's there, but I'm not sure if I will use it.
Okay, neutral is if it's absent, and like it if it's here. SMS from the bank with balance. Would you like it to have it in application?
Yes, I do expect it, and I would probably dislike it if it's not there. I do use them.
Then calls from the bank with the credit offers. Would you like to have this feature?
No, I don't like them. I don't like it. And if it's, I don't like to, if it's there, and I am happy if it's not there. I like if it's not there.
Okay, next one. Is it important for you to close your bank account via application?
Yeah, it's important.
So you will expect it.
Yes, I would expect it.
And if it's absent?
I would dislike it.
Then what about mobile application for account and card management? Is it important for you?
Application for card. Well, it's really nice. I like it, but I can live with if it's not there, or I'm maybe neutral if it's not there, because it's becoming rather an important part for me. Yeah.
How important is for you to have bank reward system, cashback in your application?
Cashback is a nice thing. I like it, but if it's not there, I can live with it.
Then is it important for you to change PIN code on the card in the ATM?
Yeah, I expect it. And if it's not there, I would dislike it.
Then next, I will ask all of them because
well, I guess we can even pause for now. If the concept is clear, maybe you have some questions, because I see you do it quite correct. No issues spotted.
Because I watched how you did it with Dennis,
yeah.
that's why.
yeah. All right, so maybe we can indeed don't continue with the rest of the cards if the idea is clear, and let's have a short break. Around 7 minutes would be good.
Okay.
Let's do that and see each other at in 7 minutes. So it would be 8:05 or yes, exactly. All right. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat, and see you in a while. Right. We'll continue in 10 seconds. It's almost 20:05. So let's continue and brainstorm just for a couple of minutes of what approaches for elicitation, the techniques for elicitation of requirements you already know or may have already used. You can go to Miro, and to the right of the Kano exercise, you can see the stickers that you can double click on and write some of your ideas. 3 minutes or less, just things that you already know and remember. Yep, Julia and Dennis, you're in the right spot. Also, I didn't say, but welcome all other people who joined. We already started and I didn't see when you arrived. Glad to see you with us today. Okay, I see some ideas coming. Nice. Okay, maybe you can write down your thoughts to finalize them and we'll see. All right, so thank you so much for the ideas. I see we have here brainstorming, asking questions, reviewing documents, using user surveys, reviewing competitors, analyzing the documentation here, it's a similar group, Google Analytics, and quality metric study. Very nice input. And let's now review some of those techniques and structure them in terms of also types of the features we want to elicit. Okay, yeah, you brought the sticker back. Thank you. All right. Sorry. Sorry for the technical disturbance. So let's review and structure this information that we just also seen and added to the stickers. First, an important thing is to say is that there's no silver bullet for requirement solicitations depending on the your project's specifics on which types of features you want to analyze and gather information for, depending on the availability of certain resources, people, stakeholders, availability of the existing documentation, we will choose the methods that we will follow, or existing like Google Analytics, whether we have it for the product, we will use it, can we use it or not. So these are some categories of the elicitation techniques that we will review further in more detail. It's survey techniques, creativity techniques, document-centric techniques, observation, and some of additional support techniques. Survey techniques serve us for eliciting the explicit knowledge, something that our users already know. We've seen as the features, for instance, satisfiers. And we make an assumption that our users are capable of explicitly expressing the knowledge. So very concisely say what they want or not want in the feature and that they understand it. In this way, we understand that some of the concerns of the stakeholders might be forgotten or disregarded even because we're asking users what they want. So for instance, if it's a feature that is a basic thing like a dissatisfier, we might not be able to uncover it. Although with smart questions for the interview, and this is one of the techniques for surveying, we can dive deeper to dig into that level of soil of the unconscious of the users and to also elicit something from there. But mainly it's something explicit. And two techniques are interview and a questionnaire. The interview is a technique for when we are setting up some meeting or some setting with our user or with person who can provide us additional information for the requirements if it's some business requirements, and then the good things to keep in mind to follow during organizing and conducting the interview. So it's important to set a goal. What exactly we want to achieve, which features we want to analyze, and to keep it very structured and bound in the timeline, whether we can actually do it in this timeline that we have. we need to make sure our respondent and the interviewer is comfortable with the entire meeting, because if person is stressed, doesn't feel safe or comfortable, it would be difficult to get the really reliable and trustworthy information, even because person might be restricted by some concerns. So building a good atmosphere during the interview is important. It's also necessary to prepare the questions you want to ask in advance, because during the interview, especially if it's some important user of ours, we might be a little bit stressed and might forget to ask some important questions. Also, we need to understand how many questions we have to also keep in mind whether we will have time to ask all of those. We can anticipate different responses. What does it mean? A user can just simply reply to us, yes, no. Do you want this feature? Yes. But it's not just a Boolean black and white answer. We want to know more insight, more depth. So we need to write and make use of some dialogue-provoking interview questions, like, do you want to, can you explain a bit more? Can you elaborate on this topic, etc. So if we are on some very short answer, or just this is a type of personality of this person, to be concise in explaining the thoughts, so we can use these follow-up questions to really understand the situation better. Then we should avoid questions or comments that would guide the person to certain answer. For example, a question like, why do you like our application, is a leading question, because it already states that a person likes our application, but we don't know that yet. It would be better to say, how would you rate your satisfaction of our application from 1 to 5, for example, like we did with the Kano for features. Also, closed questions, there would be just yes, no. It will make things more complicated just for us, or vague that are not very clear. And do prepare more questions that you will be able to ask, because the conversation might lead into the direction that you just understand, okay, everything else from this subject is no longer relevant. A person doesn't need it. And you still have some time for your meeting. So it's important you have something in your pocket to take out and to use the time effectively. Yeah, and it's also important to practice your follow-up questions to continue the conversation. Interview goals, some examples, for example, how do nurses feel about logging medical data, and what are the processes they believe they use? And some others, leading questions, yeah, as I mentioned, why do you enjoy using the Acme product so much? And the closed question is, so you use Acme product each morning? The answer is just yes and no. Instead, we can say, can you tell me more about how you use the Acme? Acme is a company that makes everything that's from the Warner Brothers movie cartoons. Follow-up questions. Can you tell me more about that? I want to make sure I understand this. Can you explain me more? Moving on to the questionnaire. Questionnaire is another survey technique where we are building up some questions. They can be open or closed. It's okay as well. We can gather some statistics by yes and no. And we can effectively gather the responses from a large audience. So with a large number of participants, if you have a large user base, it's a smart idea to use the questionnaire approach, because we can create one questionnaire once and we just distribute it so that it's not taken that much time if we would interview every and each of our users, because interviewing is quite time consuming, as you may imagine. We should fully dedicate ourselves during the meeting to this one person, and we should properly prepare before and analyze the outputs afterwards. So it's a time consuming thing. While questionnaire, we can multiply it to the amount of the users. We just create the questionnaire once, but of course, it also takes time to make really smart questions, craft them, make sure the survey is sent out, etc. And the major disadvantage of this questionnaire is that we can only receive an answer to things that we know, meaning that if we would ask users about the things we want to ask, we might already elicit before. It's rare that in the questionnaire users would really type a lot of text or a lot of inputs. It's more of choosing some radio buttons and options that we provide. So it's important to understand that we will not uncover something completely new with the questionnaire. Moving on to the creativity techniques. Creativity techniques, as we've seen, would be useful for the features delighters. It's those wow features that cause some extra excitement from using of our product. And three techniques, three interesting ones that can be applied to create these new functionalities is brainstorming, change of perspective, and analogy technique. And we'll see a little bit deeper on each of them. So brainstorming is a technique where we would gather a group of people from 5 to 10 in one room. It's important to also have a nice atmosphere and a setting so people are open and relaxed, more or less. And we would collect the ideas. Brainstorming has several phases. At first, we would generate as many ideas as possible for the topic without judging or criticizing. That's very important. In this first phase, we just brainstorm any even silly ideas are fine, and we accept them. And then after we finish with this, it's called divergence phase, we would then start to converge a little to narrow down the ideas and analyze them afterwards and select what are the diamonds that we've generated today. The very nice effect of the brainstorming is that there is a synergy effect, and think that one person wouldn't be able to create. In the collaboration with several people, it's really possible to brainstorm something completely new that separate people wouldn't be able to generate. There's another section or a different approach to brainstorming is brainstorming paradox. It's a modification of the brainstorming that we know that is mostly used. That's we are thinking about the scenarios that must not occur. So which situations should not happen? And probably if you are in a role of test engineer, you have this mindset quite a lot, because you need to think about the corner cases and which error scenarios there may be. So in the brainstorming paradox, we're thinking about such situations, error handling, and identifying the risks of the project, of the features. So that's about brainstorming. Change of perspective. Another creative technique that it has a goal of adopting. So people who participate in some session, they would adopt certain perspective. And one of the common techniques for this change of perspective is called 6 thinking hats. You can see it on the screen here. So there are 6 hats of different perspectives: facts, feelings, the negative, creativity, benefits, and process. And the person who adopts the hat should think and express all of the thoughts, thinking about, for instance, facts. What do we know about it? Can we prove it, etc.? Negative, trying to reverse it, say why it can not work, why it would be not a good idea, or creativity to brainstorm for some interesting new ideas. This technique, when it's important to use it, when it's useful to use it, when we have different stakeholders and some of them are very already quite, we can say, rigid. So they are constrained by their own opinion already, and they are not willing to open up and change it. And when we, in this more of a game format, really assign a person to, if a person always negative, to think about head of feelings or head of creativity, then it can shift the paradigm a little bit for the person and can open up a different point of view, like this empathy, and be able to see things from a different perspective. So that can be used in such a case. And the analogy technique, the last but not least, an interesting approach can be a way to analyze, elicit the requirements for certain problem or the feature. So we search for the analogy for our feature or our problem, our functionality in the nature or in other domain. So it's bionics. We really would see some situation occurring in nature and how is it solved there. So like engineering in the nature, or by association with we would need to know this domain quite well. Everybody should understand a certain process in the other area. And we would also see how certain things are solved there. So we're drawing the analogy, and this helps us to also create some new ideas for our feature. All right. The next one, the next group of techniques is document-centric. We've seen some document stickers on the Miro added right now, and indeed, make use of documents for eliciting of requirements is a good idea when we have a lot of feature dissatisfiers that are covered, that are, for instance, in the system, or we are updating, upgrading, rewriting the existing or older system to the newer. And we need to make sure all of the requirements taken into account and not missed. And so in this way, we can be more sure because they're more precise. And three different techniques for this set of elicitation is system archaeology, perspective-based reading, and reuse. So system archaeology means that we would even dive into the code with or without the help of developers. It's for the cases when we don't have really representative documentation, and we really need to understand the system from its code. How does it work? And then we would recover the requirements from there. Perspective-based reading as when we are interpreting our requirements, existing ones, from different perspectives. And in this case, it would be perspective of for instance, test engineer, or developer, or a user, etc. So we can elicit more details, and we can document them better. And reuse as just an approach when we are reusing part of the existing documentation. If we have a very nice representative documentation of the previous version or the previous system, we can partially reuse it with a review, but not to create it from scratch. Of course, this technique allows us to elicit requirements and document the requirements, gather the requirements of the existing functionality. So in case it's not the only features that we have to make sure the older functionality works and is, for instance, transferred correctly to the new system, we'll need to combine it with some other techniques for elicitation, the creativity, or the survey. And the last from this group besides the support ones, is observation techniques. It's also useful for the subconsciously known features that the features, these satisfiers that users do know about, but they don't think about them. They just expect them. And two techniques that we can see here is field observation and apprenticing, where field observation is a setting when we as a observer come to a real setting of our users, so where they work when they execute certain tasks, and we just look at how their work process is built, how they work with the software, with our system. And by this observation, we can notice some things like using of shortcuts, or some order of steps that they perform, or even where do they look for, usually for our features in the system, if there are multiple options. So we can uncover some really not obvious things for us, but very obvious for the users. So field observation is very nice, a way to elicit these covered requirements. And apprenticing is a small modification of the field observation, where we are also at the location of our user, where we're also collaborating with him or her. But in this case, the user is learning us, his process, and we are in a role of students. Why this technique is even needed if we have the field observation, the reason for it is that in this case, our user will feel more confident because he is a teacher. He will be teaching us his process. So we will also learn maybe some more reasoning to why one thing or another thing is done. So also a good thing to use. And some support techniques. Support techniques are the things that can be added to those previous elicitation techniques, and we can make use of them as well. It's a mind mapping, so a tool to really show the connection between the different information that we have during the brainstorm, for example. It's very nice visualization tool for reviewing the different types of information. Workshops. Workshops is a event. It's a meeting that we create when we can use for instance, the creativity techniques, the information gathering. CRC cards is a technique where we are structuring the information we get about certain context aspects of our system and their attributes in such cards that are called class responsibility collaboration. There is some example that helps us to visualize the different classes of information that comes to us, and then we can formulate the requirements using these cards. Audio and video recordings can be used together with any other technique, usually when, for example, we do the field observation, or maybe during some interviewing sessions, with the permission of the users, of the people that are there, of course, but they can help us go back to what we were discussing and process it in more in-depth, because during the meeting itself or the field observation, we may not notice or hear or document some small details that will actually matter. Modeling action sequences make use of modeling while we're constructing maybe or analyzing some complex processes, business processes, etc., and using the prototypes for illustration. While we are interviewing our users, we can make use of this technique, for example, while we let the user test this prototype. We let them use it, and we would see what is clear, what is not, and we discuss it during this session. It's usually makes it more productive, more fruitful. All right. Now that we passed this part, let's think let's continue with the next part of user persona technique and also the UX UI principle. So we'll continue there and then we'll go back to the mirror board. So user persona, it's not necessarily elicitation technique, but it's very close to it in a sense that it helps us understanding our users better. And then we understand which features suit for which types of users we have, and even if it suits them or not, it helps us make some decisions for the features that we do. So what does this technique entails? User personas are fictitious, and it's important, fictitious yet realistic representations of the target user. So we don't describe the exact person that we know is our users, but we create some rough intermediate, medium representation that would be a weighted average user that's of this group. There may be several user personas in our system, and we can define which are the major ones and which are not using the software that much or not that involved, more affected. So we can document and elicit this. We can then use them when we're describing the user scenarios, when we are describing the features, and when we are prioritizing them. For instance, if we have features for different groups of users, we can then see which ones are higher in priority. And this is the template that one of them you can also find on the internet plenty of different interesting other templates. This is one of them, which contains following parts. So here we have the title of the user persona. That's would be, for instance, a name, a typical name for a user based on the location, on the maybe age, and for instance, a role or a profession or a type of person in just several words. For example, Sarah, the working mom. So we understand it's a person who is growing the career, but also is taking care of the family. And in this way, we define it more precisely. So some photo is useful to understand the type of personality better, quotes of the person that he or she says, and his goals, frustration and fears, the skills, some different traits, brands and influencers that impact the person, biography, really description in a text, something about the person. And there's different sliders can be added for different traits like introvert, extrovert, etc., and some general information. So it's again average. This is one of the examples of the user persona. And by looking at this, we can activate our empathy and better feel who our users are, what they live, what their usual day is like, what's their life or their thoughts might be about. Let's move on to also reviewing the usability heuristics. So as I mentioned in the beginning of this workshop, is regardless of the role, of course, usability is a key. Taking care of usability is a key responsibility of a user experience designer. There is a separate role for that who takes care of this. But once again, any role, for any role, it's important to understand the principles, because the entire team is reviewing the requirements and the proposals to certain features, the solutions, and every team member is able to review the solutions for the usability as well, and to make valuable suggestions. So let's see the 10 usability heuristics. They're really basic 10 principles formulated by Jakob Nielsen. And they are just, some of them are really obvious, but some not that much. And moreover, they are needed. You need to recall them and make sure you remember those when you are working with requirements. So 10 principles are as following. We'll go over them one by one. Visibility of system stages. It's important for the user to understand what is going on. So a progress, a hint, a status, it's all important to understand what system status is right now. Match between system and the real world. If you can use something from the physical world and to embed it in the user interface, that would help in understanding. So you don't need to open user manual to understand that this is a trash bin. So there will be some deleted files or a save icon or a slider like that looks like a real slider. User control and freedom. It's always needed that the user has an emergency exit. It should be possible to undo, to cancel application, to exit application, to return to the state a user did, the user had if some mistake was done. It's really essential. If it's not available, that can cause a lot of confusion and annoyance for the users. You probably know about that as well from your experience. Consistency and standards. Users shouldn't have to wonder between what this formulation means and why is it different between the two different places of the workflow. For instance, sign in and log in, that causes some thoughts. Is it the same thing or how does it differ? How does it differ? So consistency within your system is really the key. Error prevention. It's a nice thing to prevent the user from doing an error rather than inform them, wow, sorry, the error occurred. So if there are any way by hints show that some things are not yet in place, like indicate or require fields or disable, visualize the button as disabled when it's not available yet. It's all helps user to not to do the potential mistakes and to save time. Recognition rather than recall. Users don't have to remember everything about our software, our system, and we don't also want to expect from them to read the user manual before using it. So we need to provide the right information right when they need them. So for instance, if you are using certain functionality, it's nice to provide a link to where they can learn more about it and or to provide some nice helping hints that are useful exactly when they are needed. Flexibility and efficiency of use. In case we have a system with multiple different users, the beginners and the advanced ones, it's important to do also the features that would speed up the work of the advanced users. So shortcuts, some advanced tools are needed. At the same time, we need to make them a bit of a more far away in a sense so that we're not overwhelming the beginner users. So for instance, here we have the instruments like in an extra advanced tab or something like that is useful. Then these are two steering wheels from the car, and I have questions for you. Which one do you think is more easy or better, more useful?
Left one.
Left one. Any other thoughts?
It should be the right one because it's the Formula One. They don't have too much time to think.
Right. So I will not ask you to think more heavily, yes, the left one and the right one, we have the options. And both answers are actually correct. It depends for whom, right? Because for a regular driver that is not a Formula One racer, the right one probably will be complicated. But for Formula One drivers, it's clear and it's more ergonomic and it's very, very customized so that you don't need to look anywhere outside. You just have it underneath your fingertips. So it's very, very user-friendly for the Formula One racers, but absolutely different story is for the regular driver. Same as on the left one, for Formula One racer, this would be not a convenient steering wheel. So it's just an explanation, or an example of different functionality serves different needs for different types of groups of users. So that's why it's important to understand who are our users and then design the tool based on them. And a lot of tools doesn't always mean that the feature is not user friendly. And there's a different example here. Which one of these? So this is a very simple design. It's a cover of the book from Donald Norman. We have a salt and a pepper jars here. Which one you think is for salt and which one for the pepper? Any guesses? This one. Do you think this one is for the salter?
Salt.
This is
I
for
also
salt.
think salt.
And why?
Because you normally need more salt than the pepper as a spice for any dish.
Okay. All right. So yeah, the answer is, well, it's not very defined. This is a very simple simple design, but it's not very clear. And actually, when these jars were tested, so Donald Norman noticed that users that were users of the restaurant that had these jars, they would guess that this is salt, but many of them just took the jar and put it on their hands to check, because they were not fully sure that other people had the same conclusions. And actually the answers were 50-50. Somebody thought this is salt, the others thought that one is salt. This is an explanation, this is an example of when a simple design doesn't necessarily make the things more clear. And a more complex design, like making the part of this jar transparent to just see it, or put like an S and a P for these dots, it would be more complex to design. It would look more complex, but it will be more clear. I hope the message is clear. Yet we have an eighth principle of aesthetic and minimalistic design. We should strive for minimalism, and designs like in this picture is a bit outdated, but also a bit overwhelming. So we shouldn't minimize the functionality just because it should be minimal, but also if we can, it should be rather clear and simple to look at. And also, aesthetics is not only because it should looks pretty, but aesthetics actually improves the ease of use. That's also was proven with certain studies. The ninth principle: help users recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors. When something goes wrong with the system, or user types some not fully correct input, we should not, for sure, we should not crash. We should not show some piece of code where it occurred for the user. We should show something clear and guidance how to recover from it, what to do next. Okay, the error occurred. What should I do? For example, please try again or check our help area. That is a suggesting solution for the user. And the last but not least, even though we don't expect users to proactively go to our user manual, it should be there. It should be available. It should be complete so that user can find the answers if they have ones. All right, let's go to Miro board and have another small discussion and just discussing about the UX UI principles in test engineer activities. So a question, how can the knowledge of UI UX design principles help test engineer in his or her work? You can also fill in some cards and we can review them afterwards, after you're finished.
You mean if they were used in the systems, how they can help us?
I mean, with the, it's a bit of a reflecting of what we've just seen. So we've looked at these 10 usability heuristics. And now if you know about these principles, why do you think they can be applied in your in the tasks of test engineer?
Yes,
or any...
but I mean, if they are applied in our application and how they can help us to, for example, understand system and etc. Or if we apply it to our application, how it can be helpful, for example, that our users will not make mistakes and etc.
So in a situation when we are, for instance, reviewing the requirements, and we also think about the perspective of usability. So we can see that, for instance, this functionality doesn't have certain important aspects of usability. Like there is no possibility to undo, or there is no hints, or the controls are ordered in not in the order that we think would be more easy to use.
Okay.
Okay, I can see you stopped writing. Let's see. So to understand how easy it can be to use function for user, yes, in a sense of these principles, we can review the suggested solution, check the navigation consistency and logic. Also true, while reviewing how the user can navigate through the system, we can check how consistent it is. So then how good in the usability it would be. Check layouts, look and feel, understand the level of usability, make sure fonts and alignments are correct, advise where to place Google Analytics or other analytics provider. Yep, very good things. So it is important not only for the user, for the UX designer to understand, but really for the entire team. All right. We have actually one more exercise, but that would take quite some time. So I want to ask you if you have maybe extra 15 minutes or so, so that we can run it, or if it's not suitable for this group, we can then continue with the wrapping up. You can let me know, please let me know your.
It's okay for me to have this exercise.
All right. Shoot. All right. So let's do it then. So again, I already informed you that the webinar will end a little bit later, but that one is really maybe my favorite exercise. So I would love to hear, I would love to do it together with you today. All right, so this is a requirements exercise, a requirements elicitation exercise, where you will be acting in a role of business analyst, or a person who is acting in a role of business analyst, who is eliciting requirements for the product. What the product is about? It's a small startup for medical apps, and you are about to start a new project for that is called migraine app. So the goal of the product is to let the user create an application that will allow users to track the migraine attacks. So migraine is a condition where there's a heavy headache. And so the people who have these migraines, and they cause them some inconvenience, obviously, they would like to track when it occurs to see some correlation. And we already have some information from the product owner. So this app should allow users to track their migraine attacks and see the reports about them and see the statistics. The side goal of the app is to collect the data for the migraine research with the users' consent for it, the clear one, so they have to accept it. Then another desired feature for this app is to have some chats within the community and have the useful articles available for reading. Then the concept of this app is a freemium. So a large amount of functionality is available after the free registration, and revenue will expect to have from some non-irritating ads and paid features. Main focus is on iOS, so for Apple devices, but Android is also interesting. And now we can have a discussion. You can ask as many questions as you want to the product owner. Maybe we'll use about 7 to 10 minutes, maybe not 15. And you need to gather information about the product, the very high level right now, but also you can dive into more details if you need, but high level is also okay. Some hints is ask why instead of following the solutions that product owner may tell you. I will be acting in the role of product owner, and track the level of detail you're working with, either on the level of application or going deeper in a specific feature topic. After this, you have some time to fill in the cards, and I'll mention the groups in more details right now as well, and we'll review what results you have. So you can pick the section, one of the sections here, and you can use the stickers to write down the information you may already have from these inputs and from the questions that you ask. We have purpose and goals of the software, project scope, product features. We have the overall description, so user classes, which users there are, design implementation constraints that we may have, some dependencies. And then here is a really place for some low level requirements. There can be some quality requirements, what should be the performance, security, safety, etc. So you can use these cards to fill it in. You can actually already start filling the cards with the input you have. And as soon as you have a question, you can just unmute yourself and ask. So we can start. If you have questions about the assignment, please let me know.
Which data should be tracked? Like only that you have migration, or how hard it is, and etc.
Which data? Yeah, good question. So we want to have the information about person's age, sex. we want to know about and the information about the tracked migraines attacks. So which symptoms they were tracked, the occurrence of these migraines to really understand the data. This is our core thing as this input from the user, but also this age and whether it's a female or male. We don't want name or location, any of that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
About statistic, I have one question. Will it be your own statistic by yourself, or you can track, for example, how other users have migration and compare maybe if it's often for typical or not?
So I'm unsure if I understood the question.
Like you can generate reports only about yourself or reports about other people?
Is it our user that tracks the migraines or the researchers that gather information?
Yes, like something like this, yes.
So the users who track their migraines.
Okay.
So if it's about users who track the migraines, then they would be able to see the statistics of only their own migraine attacks and their and how often it occurred, some data.
But it also should be a function for researchers to check statistic of all people.
Yeah, if it's the researchers, then they will have all of the data that was provided by the users that accepted to provide this data. But if you are just a user of the app and you track your own migraines, you only see your information.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, maybe take 1 minute to finalize your current cards and let's review them together and discuss. Okay, I suggest that we stop putting the cards. I know that this analysis of the new application is never done in 10 minutes, so it's not feasible to complete it fully. But for the sake of the example, it's a good exercise to really see where how the process can go and how do we perform this analysis of elicitation. So first thing, let me share maybe some feedback from what I've seen, and I was able to browse through the cards and also through our process. So Yulia, you asked several questions and noted them down, clarified some things you wanted to know, which is very nice, and it's the product owner is a source of information. While Dennis, I haven't heard questions from you, and yeah, you made some assumptions. I wanted to ask you here in the goals, which of the things here are the goals of the software, the project scope, and which of them maybe are assumptions? Well, yeah, assumptions are.
First of all, I've decided to put everything on paper that is on my mind in regards of this software, or at least what could be related somehow to this new software. If those are in the correct order or in the proper places, I really I'm really not sure. So
yeah,
let's maybe go through. Okay, so let's start with the first, or how do you want
to? Yeah. You can comment on those. And what is it? Is it because there are multiple of things?
Track. Well, basically, it track your health throughout the time. So it can be an introduction to the software because users normally don't understand what's the main purpose of the software. So it could be a good insight that software actually gives you overall view of your health over the time. So the main idea is to actually track how do you feel during the day, track the intensity of your migraines, if you had any. Then basically, depending on how good or bad you are, then you can get an advice, which software would just send you or have some pop-ups for you to read them.
And here, can I inquire? Sorry for interrupting. For this specific get advice, is it something we already are sure that we should do? Or not?
No, I don't think so. It has to be dependent on the state of the exact user. So in case...
And what about stakeholders? People who provide us input?
Inputs, users basically, and the some medical magazines or medical institutions who are researching and dealing with this problem, I assume.
And what about business stakeholders, or in our case, product owner?
Product owner.
Yeah, maybe I will explain what my questions are leading to. So in this session, in this exercise, we wanted to elicit information from the product owner. Yeah, so we assume that product owner knows some information, and we can get it from him or her in this case.
I thought I need to build this software.
Yeah. So then maybe that explains this. So the intention of the exercise was to really communicate with the product owner and to ask the questions to gather all of this information. So, and why I'm asking about get advice on drugs to relieve the pain, I would go and this is a nice idea, but it needs a confirmation and discussion with the product owner. Yeah, for the people who are signing off. Signing off. It's very formal, but who are really prioritizing and selecting the features that we will want to do in the product. So it would be nice if after you put some of these things that were not in the initial description, so that you just ask and confirm it with the product owner. For example, a functionality of getting advice on drugs to relieve the pain, would it be needed for our software or not? And what would product owner reply? He may reply that, yes, it's a good idea, let's add it. Or there can be some other reasons like, no, we cannot advise because we then cross the line of certain type of application in terms of medical regulations. And we will need like tons more documentation to prove it, something like that. So things that we add up, it's very nice. I really like how you brainstormed ideas. It's just to drag attention to, we need to confirm the assumptions. If we make suggestions to the features, we have to make sure it is feasible, it doesn't contradict to some other things. Okay, if you may, can you continue on commenting?
I think that I did it just a little bit differently. So I was thinking that I'd rather put all the things on the board and then go and discuss them with the product owner if those are needed and required, and see how feasible those are in terms of this particular application.
Yeah, and I see you brainstormed quite a lot, so very nice. Thank you. Yeah, so just maybe a small miscommunication in terms of the goal of this session. Yeah, how this exercise was designed. So indeed, just to comment that checking assumptions with our stakeholders is a good idea. Otherwise, we may miss some important information that we wouldn't be able to gather ourselves. So communication is the key. Track consumption, age, gender, place of living, calendar reminders. So it's some certain functionalities and constraints. Verifiable false, statistical data encryption. So nice. I really like how broad you think. So thank you for executing this exercise. I hope my comments would be useful for you, for your real life situation when you need to elicit some requirements or discuss them. And as for Julia, do you want to comment on your card as well? Cards.
I think I understand, but the only thing I'm not sure that I put it where it should be. It's only users that allows it can be added to reports. Is it like some system feature like that I should put, or it's like some constraints?
Which one exactly?
Force in the bottom force.
This one, only user that allows it can be added to report. So that one, let's think. It sounds like some function. It sounds like a functionality, first of all, that we want to have, right? So if user didn't, there should be some way for users to indicate this, to accept it or deny sharing the data. So it will be certain feature, but also it comes from the quality requirements of certain security or confidentiality, some regulations. So it can be both actually. So, but this is stated like, to me, it's stated more like a functional requirement that will need to be more detailed. That how we want to provide this possibility, or it's even there like in acceptance criteria of for implementation that we do. That's only users that allow sharing the data can be, their information can be shared. Is it making it a bit more clear?
Yes.
All right, right. Chat, sorry, I have to drop off now. Thank you. Thank you, Dennis. And we will close this session just in a minute. If you have time to let me know the feedback once again by dragging the sticker over here. I would be really glad to hear how you found this session in terms of delivery and the content. And if you still have a couple of minutes, it's a nice tool to put down the thoughts of what did you learn today? What are your key takeaways? I would like to thank you for participation and wish you a very good evening. Once again, excuse me for the overtime with the workshop, but I hope you found this extra exercise useful. And last thing that I want to say, that we will have the part 3 of this workshop on Thursday, which will cover the topics of requirements documentation, management, validation, and negotiation. I hope to see you there, same time, same place. If you have any questions or feedback, I will stay here for a while, for several minutes, and let me know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining, for active participation.
Okay, have a good evening. I'm not super good in feedback, so maybe I'll get something up for the next session.
Sure. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a feedback here, but more for yourself, like what was what for you was interesting personally, and what you would maybe try to apply, or it's a way to structure the information we've heard today.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much once again, and have a good evening. Bye for now.
Bye.